But with that, I'd like to invite my panel up. We're going to do this informal discussion. Helping me out today is SiriusXM, Susan, and we're going to be talking about merged mail. She's very thrilled about this, by the way, so take it easy on her. Chad Schumacher, who will be talking about some of the shared mail programs that we're doing. And then Kristen Johnson from Uline, who is going to talk about some of the things we were doing with Bound Printed Matter. So we're going to get into those things, and then we're going to give you a little bit of a preview of what else we're working on. So, you know, what's going to be happening, and when I say preview, not the next 2 or 3 years, it's the next 6-8 months. Because we know we have to keep continuously challenging ourselves and the groups to come up with ideas to help offset some of these things. So with that, hopefully we're on to the new, and I'll sit down and join our panel. The big thing that we're talking about when we shift gears into solutioning is, and I think you've seen this from Quad over the years, everything is about cooperative mailing, right? It's working with our clients and our partners, but it's also you folks working together. You know, it started out back with, you know, pool shipping or drop shipping. Started sharing trucks. And it's funny because I'm old, I've been here a long time. It was like, oh, I don't want to be on the same truck as my competitor. Well, pretty soon we figured out, well, you got to drop ship because guess what? We're going to put the mail in the same way anyways. Then we went to co-palletizing, right? How do we put shared mail on pallets? We were just talking about that this morning. You know, what's the next step? Then we get into co-mingle for letters, co-mail for the flat side, and then we're putting into different people's magazines, catalogs, putting it into the same bundle, right? Or putting it into the same tray when we talk about co-mingle services. We're going to talk a little bit about that, where we've taken some of these new products in terms of co-mail and expanding that. But another strategy you heard about a little bit in DC, and we're doing more of it now, and it is a strategy, shared mail, right? Shared mail is this idea that now we're going to go down to the piece level. And if there's 2 or 3 pieces going to the same household, let's make that one mail piece. Because there's a cost efficiency for the Postal Service, but there's also obviously an efficiency on our side as well, from a cost standpoint. So we'll talk about that, talk about some of the Doorfront Direct options, some of the other things we're bringing out from an optimization standpoint. But when we look at it, it all kind of goes back to what we were talking about, right? Yesterday was about the bad news. Here's all the things we have coming at us. Then we kind of ended the day with the promo incentives. That's an easy way to take it off the top. Now, it doesn't help the publishers, unfortunately. And we are working. You will see Uline is as much of a cataloger as anybody I know. It's just an 800-page plus catalog, but we're working on that. So the first thing we wanted to talk about is co-mail and merged mail. How many have heard about merged mail in here? This is really hard when you ask a question and the lights are in your eyes, but right. I didn't see everybody up. The idea of merged mail, it's really inline co-mail for letters when you think about it. So the example that we show is how do you take basically a single roll of paper, run it through a digital press, so now we can have all the personalization, all the creative different clients, and then take and put it in a personalized envelope. So the SiriusXM piece or the State Farm piece or whatever it is looks just like you did it independently, but put it together. Now you've heard the term standardization in here. We have to make standards. This is a prime example of that. Now standards doesn't mean non-personalized, because this is as personalized as you can get. But what we're talking about is because, yes, you're going to have to use the same roll size, the same paper stock, you're going to go in a number 10 envelope. If you don't know, envelopes are hard to come by, so a number 10 window envelope is the easiest thing for us to start to inventory so that we can work on these programs. But by doing this, we have an inline option. You're merging or co-mailing those pieces together, and then without doing that, those would be individual streams, right? So we're looking at 25 to 28 cents a piece for those in today's market. When we merge it together, sometimes we even get to high density, but you get to that 5-digit, that 25-cent type rate. So we're merging no pun intended, merging the marketing concept and personalization with how do you optimize? How do you make that still a single mail stream? So with that, I'm going to turn it over. Oh, one more slide, of course. You can see what's happened. The dark blue there is what we did last year. The next aqua blue is really what we have projected. Really, the only thing that's holding us back on this program is, what do you think? Envelopes. You couldn't even get that one right, Charlie. Envelopes. I'm impressed you're not asleep by now. Carolyn and I have worked together a lot on the pub side lately. Yeah, envelopes. So the clients that are in are using it very effectively. We want to expand it, and we will as soon as we can get materials. And unfortunately, the supply chain is what's coming into a limiting factor right now in terms of expanding this. But we'll talk about the actual program, but again, think this is the model we're going after. How do you standardize the inputs, i.e. the materials, but still use a highly personalized, cost-effective, from postage standpoint, medium? And with that, I will turn it over to Susan. If you want to use that or the slides, or if you just wanted to kind of describe things as you go through.
Hi, I'm Susan. I'm with Sirius XM Radio. I work out of my home in North Carolina, my office in New York City. So Sirius XM does, I work on the reacquisition, gross ad win back. We do approximately 7 million pieces a week to win back our customers. That's the side of the business I'm on. There's another side that also does your post and pre-mailings. Your subscription is going to end soon. So we do a weekly mailing, and it's approximately 5 million a week. We have 8 letters, 10 envelopes, and as you know, we can't get envelopes. So Quad approached us and said, hey, we have this merged mail program, white paper in, number 10, let's standardize these letters. So we did, and which way?
Yep, the top one.
So, no, I can't do it. My nails are too long.
Okay.
You do it.
I'll get another. Charlie, oh, no, I had a job for you.
So we have these, we had a major mailing for our April sale, and we had 10 different mail creatives. So we worked with our marketers, and we standardized all the letters to 8 3/8 by 10 3/4 in a number 10 envelope. So as you can see, you can have all variations, all colors. Every letter is different, and they merge them then on the QDMX. We mainly work out of Pewaukee, and also the West Hampton, New Jersey facility. They have the equipment as well. This is an example of some of our letters. The envelopes are also personalized to the person's name. As you can see, they also have the key code on the bottom for where that data file came from, so it can tie back, and it's also a QC procedure that they use at the letter shop to say, okay, Susan, the name of the envelope, it's addressed to Susan, it's added to Susan, it's from this key code. So everything ties back to each other. So the QC is effective for everyone. There were 14 different variations of envelopes in this mailing, and it all mailed. There's also 2 pockets on this machine, and that's for buck slips. Some of the buck slips, some of the envelopes, they had this one buck slip, it had a different phone number to call in. Some of the letters needed another buck slip. So that's the constraint with that equipment. There's two pockets only for buck slips. So we're trying to get away with using buck slips, but marketers love buck slips.
That's okay. When we built that machine, they told me you didn't need any buck slips. So we
Right.
at least got you 2. We'll work on
Right.
that.
Well, so the good thing to know also, it's an intelligent inserter. So it will say, okay, this person needs a buck slip, this one doesn't, this one does. And so it is intelligent. You can put different buck slips into different packages. So we worked with Quad because there is also volume constraints with this equipment. So we created this spreadsheet, and Quad works with us on a weekly basis. We go over all of the mail streams, what capacity. So as you can see, this mailing had over 7.5 million different names, different data files, and we merged them all together. And we keep track of this on a weekly basis. The other benefit is when your marketer comes to you and says, well, I don't want this on my outer envelope. I want it to say open, important information. You have 2 weeks. You tell Quad, okay, for this letter, I want this saying on your outer envelope, and they'll come in and put that. So you're not, you don't have to worry about preprint on your envelopes. You can put anything you want on your envelopes, any messages. For every person, it could say something different. We're working on doing the vehicle. You know, hey, Susan, this is for your Jeep. You know, Jeff, your Porsche is ready to expire.
Don, you
your
gotta give me that. I'm
Lamborghini.
getting a Porsche.
So that's the great benefit. You have the option. You have the option to change your whole letter, creative, in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, the Quad team will, you know, we'll give them the art to do. They'll redesign your letter, and in 2 weeks, you have a brand new concept, a brand new idea. So it's worked very well for us.
And you can see, I mean, basically 10 letters, 14 envelopes, double buck slip. There's hundreds and hundreds of combinations. And I think this is what we talked about when you and I talked, which was the ability to do all of that in a supply chain that's limited for envelopes,
Yeah.
but still make those changes on the fly really has enabled you to do more.
Yes.
So I'll ask the dangerous question. What's the limitation or what's the downside, other than buck slips? I heard that already.
So the limitation is capacity. As you know, our marketer will say, we want to do a special sale. Can we fit 5 million? And I'm like, when? Oh, in 2 weeks. So we scramble, Quad, we scramble, what capacity? We only have in our spreadsheet what we are mailing, but of course there are other clients. So I always say, hey, can we squeeze another 5 million in? And they say, sure, most of the time. Most of the time.
We try.
Yeah. So that would, I think, and then the other thing is it is a 4-color inkjet. So if there are some images that don't come out clear, and they'll catch that in QC, some of the letters will go by, and they'll reinsert those and put them back in. So it's keeping an eye on the quality, and our marketers love it. They're all seated in the mail. We get them, and yeah. So there really isn't much downside to this.
I only heard capacity and more buck slips.
Yeah, well.
We'll work on that.
Well, that's the other thing. So buck slips, because it is also a 20-week paper order for buck slips, but.
Good deal. So, questions from the audience while we're on the topic. Does this make more sense, merge mail, and what they're doing with that?
Are the envelopes like pre-constructed?
Just a minute. Can we get, only so that it's on the recording to show up. Thanks, Linda.
Yeah, thank you. Are the envelopes pre-constructed envelopes, or are they being made as like an inline die-cut product?
They're constructed. So there's a pocket for all the envelopes and a pocket for the inserts, and then a big roll of white paper that goes in the machine.
Okay, thank
And
you.
it pulls the envelope.
Thank you, that's great business, thank you.
Yeah, so it's a blank number 10 window envelope, and it's a blank sheet of paper going in.
Hi, so can you merge commercial and nonprofit mail in this?
Commercial and nonprofit, we can't from a mail stream, not at this point.
Okay, and on the postage side, does each have its own statement, and can you go through EPS? Do you pay postage through EPS?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like any other co-mail program we have. You have your individual statement for your work, and then everything's going, well, hopefully everything, going through EPS accounts.
Thank you.
Does it have a micro unit on the manufacturing line? Over here.
Micro,
No.
it's not micro paper or ink.
Anything else?
It's a question for Susan. Are you finding that your marketers are doing more testing as a result of the digital print on both the letter as well as the envelope? Like content, creative, things of that nature?
Yes, they have been informed that they can do any color they want. So we do, this weekly mailing, it was standard. They never changed it. Marketers didn't want to change it. But now that we have this equipment, we have that ability to move the content around more often. So yes, they do. They don't like testing. That's the first step. But when they do, they have the ability to do it. And they know they have 2 weeks, which is great also.
By the way, if you see us squinting, it doesn't
Yeah.
look like it, but I've been warning the presenters. These lights are like right in your eyes, so we can kind of see the sides, but people in
Right.
front of us. I know this is going to be Russ because I can see it.
Yep. So, do you furnish artwork to Quad, or how do you communicate what your different versioning is going to be for programming?
Yes, we send Quad the art, and their art department will put it in the format needed for this equipment. We provide them the data, which is another benefit. The data doesn't need to be at Quad until the day of the merge. So that's great for SiriusXM. They're able to get the most clients that have either not dropped off immediately. They can add more names because they just finished their subscription but didn't renew. So they can add names at the last minute. So that's a benefit for the marketers as well.
What do you see back from Quad? What do you show what do you see and what do you show your marketers that tells them, yes, that's how I want that to look? Or and also, how many back and forth exchanges do you typically
So
have?
we work with Quad, and for the automation mailing, they have a proofing system called Vision. So when the data file comes in, it merges with the art, and it goes onto a web-based portal that we log into, and we could see the name that goes with this letter, and it's audited. And our marketers need 24 hours, and they'll go through all of the variations of the letters to assure the data matches. And then we are also seated. So my mailman doesn't like me much.
You get everything, I'm sure.
Yeah, I get at least 25 pieces of mail. On Tuesdays, Maureen. It comes on Tuesdays.
Thank you.
Anything else? Good deal. Thanks, Susan.
You're welcome.
It's, again, this is, think of it as a model of how do you standardize, how do you get things efficient. And as you can see, we're actually making changes later in the process because we don't have preprint. We don't have all these variations to deal with up front.
Yeah.
So it becomes a real efficient process. And at least personally, I just like the way how customized and personalized you can still make it, even though we talk standards. You know, and this is a theme you're going to be hearing from us because this is how you make things efficient for the vendors, us, the Postal Service, but yet still have a really dynamic program. So really excited about this one. Okay, the next situation was, if you would have asked me 2 years ago if we would ever do bound printed matter co-mail, in fact, I probably was, I would say, no, we're not going to do that. But again, this is one of those where working with one of our partners, she's challenged us to what they're doing. They also started doing some different things in terms of their catalog. And this was really, I think, a partnership between us, Uline, and then the Postal Service, because we're doing some things that technically weren't in the rule book. So it's all legal. We got the exceptions for it. But it is a very unique program, but it's, again, another one of those, how do we work together to offset something that could have been really dramatic because it would literally split their files apart. So with that, I will turn it over to Kristen. Just the green one.
Okay, thank you. I'm Kristen Johnson at Uline, and for anyone who is not familiar with Uline, we are a cataloger. Our product is shipping supplies. We have shipping supplies, material handling, janitorial, an array of other supplies. We are located in Wisconsin. We have 12 locations in North America, including Canada and Mexico. Our premier catalog is 848 pages. It currently mails as a bound printed matter parcel. We have another catalog that is our Best of Uline. It is almost 400 pages, and that one mails as a bound printed matter flat. And we also have several other smaller niche catalogs that highlight a product item, and those are mailing as marketing mail flats. So we have an array of catalogs that we mail. I'm going to back up a little bit to 2020, 2021, when our big catalog was 812 pages. At that time, it was mailing as a bound printed matter flat. And every year we had been adding pages to our catalog, and it was growing. And that was a pivotal year for us, because if we had added pages, our catalog would go from a bound printed matter flat to a bound printed matter parcel, because the spine width would exceed 3/4 of an inch. So that was a pivotal decision that we had to make. At the same time, the Postal Service had put out their proposal to move bound printed matter parcels from market dominant product into competitive. And obviously that was a very scary thought for us, thinking our catalog is now going to be a competitive parcel. That just didn't make a lot of sense. And we were really worried about, well, what would happen with our rates? Our rates are bad enough in market dominant, but you put that into competitive, and that just added a lot of complexity. So we actually had to mull over the decision for a few years, because this was a long-term decision we were about to make. Say the green?
Big green.
All right, so there were many considerations that we had to go through. Lots of concerns that we had over this. I had already mentioned the postal proposal to go to competitive. And of course, price. Price is a big deal. Once you go from flat to a parcel, the whole pricing structure changes. We also wanted to talk with Quad about their production. We wanted to know not only about our future catalog for 1 year, but many years down the road, if we continue adding pages, would there be any limitations to their equipment, whether it be press, bindery, or mailing process? Would there be any roadblocks that we would run into? We were also concerned about the postal sorting equipment that would handle the catalog once it became a parcel. If you've seen the small parcel sorters, they essentially dump the parcels onto a conveyor belt, and they get pushed off into a bin with all these other parcels. So for anyone who has a catalog, I can imagine how damaged the catalog would become. So it was a concern for us that we didn't want our catalogs to be processed on those machines. Another thing that was a major concern to us was the parcel barcode. We were using the Intelligent Mail barcode, which is on every letter and flat. Consumers are essentially numb to seeing that barcode because it's on everything. But you change that to a parcel barcode, which is very large, and you put that in your address block area on the back cover of your catalog. It's very distracting, takes away from the artwork. It is not something that we wanted. In addition, we didn't really believe that we needed it, because we were not interested in the scan information that came along with the parcel barcode. That was not of interest to us for our mailing reasons. Another concern we had was we had a co-mail program. We were already co-mailing at Quad in the bound printed flat arena. So we had our large catalog that was 812 pages at that time. We had a smaller catalog that was almost 400, also in the bound printed flat category. So we were co-mailing our own mail together, and it was very successful. We were able to get the carrier route and the 5-digit levels. So having a parcel catalog, that was another concern, what would happen to that program and the efficiency of both. But that co-mail program also allowed us to expand our DDU program that we already had in place with Quad. So we were combining the two catalogs together, we were getting the necessary weight requirement to go to additional DDUs. So for all of these reasons, making that choice to grow one catalog into parcel category, we didn't take it lightly. We had a lot to get through, and it took a lot of meetings and discussions and coming up with some creative solutions to make it happen. So the first thing we did is work with Quad to test the larger catalog on their equipment. But I have to honestly say, this is one of my favorite things to do, and I love doing this, sitting down with Quad employees from all aspects of production, whether it be press or bindery, postal, freight, getting everybody together and just talking about here are all of our challenges and how we can overcome them. I believe that Quad employees, they have a great deal of knowledge and they all have passion for their job, so everybody looks for different ways. Let's see what we can do. Let's think outside of the box and figure out how we can make this happen together. So Quad helped organize the meeting with the Postal Service, brought all the right people to the table, and we were able to sit down with the Postal Service and talk to them about the challenges that we see with this parcel mailing. And if we were to go there, here are the things that, Uline was looking to overcome in order to continue growing our catalog. Two of our main goals, like I said before, was to keep our catalogs off of the small parcel sorters, and secondly, to not have that parcel barcode on the back cover if we didn't have to.
Not to interrupt you, but I also learned a new term from Kristen and Uline. That's called the ugly barcode. So we would keep the ugly barcode off of that piece.
Right. I think everybody would agree, right? So we worked with the Postal Service, and they actually did approve a unique program. Uline has a mailing exception, and it's specific for our catalogs, and they allow us to co-mail both bound printed mail flats with bound printed mail parcels together in one mailing. So essentially, we are doing the same thing we were doing in the flat world, but now we're doing it with flats and parcels together. And in doing so, it's essentially co-mailing them together, but submitting two different postal statements to the Postal Service. One is for the flats, where we pay the flat rate for those pieces, and the other one represents the parcels, and we pay the parcel rate for them. The Postal Service also did not require the parcel barcode, because as much as we did not want the ugly barcode on our catalog, they did not want to be scanning that barcode at multiple locations within the Postal Service. They didn't want to have to scan it upon receipt, and certainly not when the carriers were delivering the catalogs. So that turned out to be a win-win. The co-mail program also allows us to combine, both of the larger catalogs and continue to get the weight that is needed to make the pallets to go to DDU as well as to DSCF. So overall, it's a great program. The combination of co-mail and DDU is working out wonderfully for Uline catalogs. We do have a net savings overall, and that is after you consider the cost to co-mail as well as the additional freight for the DDUs. And the quality of our catalog at time of delivery, they're in really good shape, and we're really happy with it right now. So this shows you what a pallet of Uline catalogs look like when it arrives at the DDU. Just a few of them on there. And the The pallet arrives directly at the DDU. Again, we don't have the pallet barcode, so nothing needs to be scanned. Those bundles are all carrier out bundles. So literally, the clerks drop them off at the carrier stations. The carriers open up the bundles and hand sort them to the, with all of the flats. And there is minimal handling of our catalogs. So the program, we believe, is a huge success. We got everything that, all of our concerns were overcome, and it's working great.
Great. Yeah, this was a tricky one. I'll admit, Kristen is absolutely right. It took a lot of internal. I mean, you're going to see that in the next program too, where, you know, it was Brian and the CE team, it was production, it was getting the Postal Service involved. Not often do I give the Postal Service credit for being logical, but you heard Sharon yesterday. They want that high-dense DDU pallet, or at least cross-dock pallet. Well, had we not been able to do this, we wouldn't have that, because it would have been split streams, the normal parcel and the normal flats. So it definitely was one of those, at first people are going, oh, you can't do it. But partnering together, partnering with the Postal Service, it really did come out well. And you could tell just from those pictures. And we went out to the field multiple times and saw the pieces, or saw what happened if we didn't do it. And yeah, those catalogs did not look good when it drops 15 feet, 10, 15 feet out of the machine. So this really was a unique situation, but it worked out really well in terms of being able to accomplish what you wanted. Questions? We got a runner? Thanks.
Hi, what about, well, it's not 100% DDU entered, right? So what about the non-DDU copies? Are you still combining those onto SCF pallets or anything and designating SCF enter them? Can you combine them, or is it a different process?
No, it's one mail stream, so we are going to DSCF. Most of the largest percentage of all of our pallets we're going to DDU and DSCF.
The other piece of that exception, you want to talk a little bit about even when it's only the parcel, the IMB?
Oh, we were able to work with the Postal Service there. We are not co-mailing every week because we don't mail both of those catalogs every single week. So even the weeks that we do not have to put the parcel barcode on. We are still processing them as an irregular parcel, so essentially more like a flat than an actual parcel. So no, we do not, we go to a lot of the SCFs. There was one concern about some of the mixed ADC pieces, and we actually do shrink wrap a small percentage of our catalogs that we feel the bundles could potentially be broken up before it gets to that small parcel sorter.
And that's really like the 1-2%.
It's really small.
I think we're running at about 30% DDU.
I think so. On the mailings, yes.
So the rest is going, DSCF. But again, we're still building that larger pallet. So for the Postal Service, it's a cross dock, right? They don't have to handle it, which is really obviously the goal for the Postal Service, but also the goal for Uline, which is the carrier is really the first person touching those books from the time it leaves our plant, other than the pallet itself. Other than, I think it's not even it's under 2% that we're actually doing the ADC stuff.
Right. And with the 2.5-pound catalog, it's a lot easier to get a DDU pallet because you have the weight.
Any other questions for Kristen? Okay, we'll go into the next topic, which now we're going to shift gears a little bit into this shared mail concept and talk about some of the efforts that we're making there, right? This is, again, the next strategy for us. How do you share in the cost of the physical piece? And now Meredith, make sure I get it the right way. It really has been, I think, for 4 or 5 years pushing us on this concept, which is how do we put two together? How do you put dynamic together and so forth? So it doesn't have to be in the pub space. Obviously, the pub is what we've worked on, and you're going to hear about us working in that space because it makes sense because of the piece rate. But we're looking at it for shared mail in terms of retail. We're looking at it shared marketing. Again, these guys have taken it to an extreme, which is great, and adapted as they've gone along. But the concept is the same thing, similar to the merge mail. It's the concept and the model that we want you to understand, because this is, again, the direction of how can we keep this thing a viable product out there in the Postal Service. To be fair, I'll turn this over to Chad in terms of what he's doing. I will tell you, we do have, if you want to see this afterwards, my wife isn't too happy. Well, she doesn't know it yet. But this is what came literally in the mail last week. So because we're doing this, I figured I'd steal this. Although Chad did tell me that these are renewal copies and I'm supposed to have her pay the bill. But, see, it is actually her name, you can tell. But the concept is really pretty simple, right? Do you want to put 3 of these things separate and pay for each of the pieces, or because they're going to the same household, do we want to put it in one? And then in this case, they don't have answers on this one, but the renewals and everything else. So with that, I'll let you explain the dynamics and the fundamental cost of this and how you guys put it together and how we're adapting in the last couple of months.
Thanks, Jeff. So, like Jeff said, I'm Chad Schumacher. I'm responsible for production at Meredith, or now Dot-Dash Meredith. So really, right now, I'm a print guy trying to champion print at a digital company. So, and we're supportive of print. Thank you. But print's evolving, and it has to coexist with digital, and that's really what Dot-Dash is really bringing to our publications and our brands. So, as we've kind of talked about, I mean, costs are going up, and really half the cost to produce a magazine right now is postage. Paper's catching up really quickly, but postage is the key cost, and up until this year, I've spent most of my time trying to lower our distribution costs and look at the total cost to deliver. And one thing we've kind of alluded on this week a little bit is that gap between carrier out and 5-digit, which is now almost 20 cents. So as we co-mail and do everything to improve postage, we're trying to move everything to that carrier out level. But as we continue to brainstorm, we wanted to determine what else could we do. What we determined is we went through and analyzed, and we found that this was back in 2016, we had about 1 million subscribers who got both Better Homes and Gardens and Family Circle. So we had, your traditional brainstorming up on a whiteboard, all these ideas. And I apologize for the people who were 2 years ago. This is pretty much the same presentation we did in DC 2 years ago, so it's a little repetitive. But I think it's an important story. So in the brainstorming, somebody suggested, well, let's do a flip book for Better Homes and Family Circle. The old concept, you look at it one way, and you have Better Homes going through the first 100 pages, you flip it over, and you have the Family Circle cover. And, with brainstorming, we discouraged that immediately and said, that's a stupid idea. But then we really started thinking about it. What was this person trying to say? And the answer was, well, I want to mail it as one piece of mail. And then it just like came to us immediately, and it stood out that it's been there all along. This is easy. Just put it in a poly bag. We are already polybagging most of our copies. One with renewal envelopes, which is already shared mail that we don't even talk about because we've been doing it for 30 plus years of putting the renewal piece in the bag. So we started talking about how do we do this, and we ended up taking those 1 million names, pulling them out of the list, and putting them into one mail stream, polybagging them together, and sending them out. The problem was it was a one-off solution. It really didn't scale. We could do it one time. We looked at other titles, and there was 300,000 here or there, and especially today with a 20-cent gap between carrier out and 5-digit, even though we'd save the piece, we end up spending more because we don't get the sortation. So we worked with our supplier, went through a process of trying to brainstorm how could we do it, and developed what we call combo poly. It's really dynamic combo poly. We're using selective technology. At its heyday, we had 10 titles on a line, plus all of our advertiser inserts, plus our envelopes, all going through, and polybagging in one single mail stream. At its peak, we had 4 million copies. It would have 2 or more pieces in the bag. The total pool was about 6 million copies. We had to partner with the post office because one of the charming things about the post office is we don't pay as Meredith or Dot Meredith for our postage. We pay by Better Homes and Gardens or Real Simple. So we had to work with the post office to figure out how we pay postage when we have two entities in the bag. The other thing that we had to work with is we had to work with our publishers. I sat down originally with the publisher of Better Homes and Gardens and the publisher of Family Circle and talked about, hey, we're going to put both of your copies in the bag. And they freaked out. You know, they went through this process. I don't even want them coming up on the same day. And I said, they already do. You have the same on sale date. And in fact, if they don't come together, it means Jeff's not putting them together in co-mail and there's cost. So we got through those hurdles. And I think that's an important thing now as we're challenged with cost and challenged to try and keep print relevant is we can't look at sacred cows. We've got to challenge everything that we've always held to be true, and maybe it's not anymore. So really, 2021, with 10 titles, like I said, we saved $8 million in postage. Postage and fewer poly bags, you know, improved sortation because of the number of copies that we were going in there. So that was a 10% reduction in costs. We also spun it with, I mean, I think a lot of us get the questions about environment. Anybody who uses poly bag, the advertisers are, you know, what are you doing about poly? One thing that Quad does is they put a message on every poly bag that it's recyclable.
Yeah, these are live copies. And, oh boy, I better not tell you that it's a second notice. I've got to get it paid. But you can see again, we added this piece because of the poly concern. You know, it's number 4, recyclable polys, because people are worried about it. And to Chad's point, if we don't do this, they're getting 3 poly bags. So it's actually less poly when we're doing these programs. But people don't think that way. They see poly and freak out, so.
Jeff,
Yeah,
can I'm curious, was there any noticeable effect in renewal rates for the magazines once they ended up going into the same poly bag, or did they have the same customer responsiveness that they had when they were separate pieces?
No, we didn't have it. We have had no feedback that there's any degradation in the amount of renewal rates. You know, it is, I will admit, it's a little more confusing. Our envelopes will have the title on the envelope, so they know that it's a renewal for Better Homes, even though Real Simple might be in the bag. So I think there is that risk of a little more confusion, but we haven't seen any kind of decrease.
It does, though. Should not have used this as the example, Mike, but there's only one per.
Good point. Yep.
Like, here's her Better Homes and Gardens. So only one renewal per. So like this would have been a 3-piece, but it got split into 2 because of 2 renewal notices. So they are split, to Mel's point, into. So you won't have 2 renewals to get that part confusing. Because you got a subscriber that's slacking here.
So not to dive too technical, so what we would do is we would identify the names that we thought were eligible to combo. We would send them, they go to Quad at this point in time, and they'll go through and analyze the list, you know, determine one, if there's 2 envelopes, they will not combo those together. They'll possibly find another magazine to go with it. They will, you know, they'll measure weight and everything like that. So we might be doing 4 million bags of 2. We'd have another 100,000 that might even have 3 in it. But then there's still going to be 1.5 million names in that pool that are just a single bag because of the envelopes, especially when attached mail is a little heavier in the fall.
The packaging routine that we built had to take all that, you know, inserts, the different magazines. We still have to have the 3/4 inch, 20-ounce rules. So they pre-address pieces like that. So that takes all of that into account. So to your point, this is a prime example of there was 3, but there were 2 renewal notices, so it got 2 in one, 1 in another. It splits it up. It's intelligent that way in terms of how it's packaged.
So then what's next, I guess? We always have to look, and unfortunately, we closed several titles. this year, which those 10 now go down to about 5. So our numbers go down, our sortation is worse, and all of a sudden we're starting to give back some of that savings. We have fewer names to match up. So, I mean, I think that's important now as well, that we have to be constantly looking at what our portfolio looks like, you know, what are the characteristics of what we're mailing, and how the rate structure at the post office is set up. So right now, we're actively working with Jeff and his team, and we're calling it Combo Plus, which basically we are taking other attached mail of the names that we wouldn't necessarily, that only have one subscription to our titles, and we're gonna put those into the pool and bring more mail back into the pool to get those numbers back up so we get to those 93% plus sortation levels that we're looking for. And though there'll be less copies that have 2 in a bag, we're going to get back to the point where we have the sortation levels and the savings that we expect and get our piece rate back down.
I mean, this has been that evolution. We started out with what we called static 2s, static 3s. In other words, just specific to magazines. Then we got dynamic. But the combo pool was a separate mail stream from everything else. And then this latest challenge is, okay, I want combo, but now I want it inside the same stream. And August versions, we'll be doing this, issues. One way or another, right, Mel? We'll be doing this. But again, that's that adaptation, but it's working back and forth. Got a great relationship with these folks. We're very transparent when we talk.
That's a nice way to say it.
Probably the nicest way I could say that. But you have to be. We're both trying to accomplish the same thing, and we're really breaking the barriers. You used the term outside the box, Kristen. That's what we have to do, is think outside the box and how we're going to continue that process. And when things happen and you have to adapt, how do you still take advantage of it? It would have been real easy to say, well, combo's gone. I know these guys would never tell me that. Their question is, how do we make it work? But working together, it's been a really successful program. I'm not saying that we don't have our challenges. We do along the line, but that's the world we're in now, because there is no easy answer. It's how do you overcome the challenges? And when we did this, again, I'll give credit to the CE team, the production teams. This was no easy task internal to Quad. But now that we're doing it, I think it transitioned really well, to be honest with you. I think so far, you know, production-wise, we've made it happen. It's just a lot of, you know, challenges getting up to that point when we have it. Questions?
Yes.
So it seems like the first combo poly was I won't even say dot dash at the time, Meredith specific co-mail group. Now with the Poly Plus, would it involve the other customer publisher multi-wrap polys, or is this still a dot dash Meredith specific grouping?
It is still specific to just dot dash Meredith, but we're willing to entertain if we would compare lists and take a look at names, and if there's a reasonable overlap in value, we definitely entertain putting somebody else in the bag with us.
Here, actually, Brian, just kind of cover your face. This is, again, that model and evolution. They know, since we started developing this 2 years ago, and I say they, CE, all the production teams, we're building this into multi-wrap. That you will see probably by the end of the year. And now it'll be optional if you don't want to go, right? You think two publishers in the same portfolio don't like it. We're talking about potentially putting 2 different magazines from 2 different publishers or 3 publishers. We have the ability to do it in pre-sort. The piece that we're working on now, and when I say working on, I mean it's literally on my whiteboard and we're having development, is how do we handle that piece rate allocation? We've tried and waited for the Postal Service. They're not going to handle it. We've decided to take that responsibility on, just like we do co-mail, right? That says, okay, we'll calculate it and tell you who's, you know, means going through every combo package we build, who paid the piece rate, which would be the high ad percent, how do we split it? But again, this is an opportunity for publishers to work together, and with these kind of rates, it's kind of up to you. Are you willing to take that next step, which is uncomfortable? But again, I've been here long enough. Dropship was uncomfortable, co-mail was uncomfortable. It's that next step that says, those 2 are getting in, Chad, you hit it on that. They're getting in the house at the same time anyways. So the question is, are we ready as an industry to put it together. We're building that now. And you will see that coming out, that in multi-wrap. And the trick is, and this has actually helped force us into this, it can't be a separate combo poly, because then we split things apart. It's got to be combo inside of multi-wrap. And like I say, so that people don't think we're forcing it, there's a flag already set in there. If you say, nope, I want my title by itself, or I only want my titles together, we can do that. But yes, you will see that coming out. And that really has been that evolution in the plan all along.
But even in the interim, even if you didn't add those other publishers into the same combo poly, if you just added the couple million pieces into the multi-wrap group just to get the mail stream and carrier route benefits, and they'd still be in their own poly, would that be more of an interim solution where you wouldn't have those issues to deal with? Or is it more of a pot, you run out of pockets, or?
Yeah, pockets is a huge issue. We, you know, every month we are planning pockets and maximizing, because we have so many advertiser pieces going into it. You know, it's limited, but as our titles have gone down, the pocket availability comes up. The other thing we didn't really talk about that adds tremendous complexity to this, and, you know, the publishing side of the group here will understand this, is the fact that we are sending the names to Quad to pre-sort, and they're sending the names that get the attached mail piece or the renewal piece back to CDS to do their letter shop. So their pre-sort is driving the CDS letter shop, which is amazing to accomplish.
That was one of the big hurdles, is how do we get that pre-addressed piece in line with all the titles, in time with combo, and then back. But again, you overcome these things if the need is big enough, right? And we're kind of in that situation now. You overcome those pieces. And it won't be phase one of multi-wrap, but logic would tell you, I think where you're going, John, is maybe you bring some pieces in from the multi-mail, the pieces that don't, because you've already got a piece, right? So if I can do a combo piece, yes, it goes poly, but maybe you actually look at those pieces and bring those in, because I can take advantage. Again, this isn't a solution across the board, right? We're seeing usually 5, 6, these guys cross-sell, so they do a good opportunity there, but generally it may only be 5 or 6% of your file. But when you think of it, I mean, those are the old rates, 21.8, even if we're at carrier route, which most of ours are, you would have been paying, if you think about it, almost 66 cents versus paying 21.8. There's a lot of savings here. We, as one of the publishers I talked to, the savings is on the table. Let's not argue over how to split it up. We got to figure out how to split it up, but let's take advantage of it. And that's really what we like to hear, is people thinking outside the box, going, okay, if I'm going to have 2 poly pieces, maybe we put 1. And down the road, maybe we optimize that multi-mail because I've already got a piece going there. And these guys do a lot, right? They've already got the renewal piece. They've already got the inserts going in there, multiple. That's the direction we're going. But yes, you will see it in multi-wrap, and we are building it now. So I mean, and even when we built theirs, I mean, that was always the intention as we built this out.
We had a past CEO who said, he challenged me and said, I want to have magazine day, where all my magazines show up in a box one day. And literally last week, Jeff had magazine day.
I had magazine day. My wife doesn't know it yet. But I will work on the fact that that's the second notice I just noticed in there. I didn't do a good job on my props.
We might be able to tell you a little secret about that too, but.
Okay, we'll catch up onto that. So other questions on the idea of the shared mail, in this case, the shared poly and the combo poly?
That's a great question. So really, we're running about over 2 weeks. It'll mail over the course of 2 weeks. So there was definitely, as we went through this process, we had to look at what our tolerances were for in-home. We had to standardize on sale dates. So I would say that delivery is over a wider window than what probably we were looking at 15 years ago.
I would say, and you guys know the schedule as well as I do, but the biggest part of the schedule is when we get the data files, send it to CDS, and then they have their 10 business days to get us the files back or to get us the product back. So it's that attached mail piece also that adds into the equation. Any other? Okay. We're going to cover a few more things in terms of solutions. and kind of, again, shared mail. Most of this, some of this you've seen in the past. I think most people know we started a partnership called Doorfront Direct. We talked about it 2 years ago. We saw with PAEA, the 10-year review, that basically what's happening was going to happen. I didn't think it was to this level, to be honest with you, but we saw rates or felt rates were going. We probably were ahead of our time because we didn't realize the 10-year review was going to take 14 years. By the way, that's good. I wish it had taken 20 because we could have stayed at CPI. But we started looking at what do we have as a plan B if Postal Service rates get too expensive? And we're kind of in that now. This is not by any means a replacement for the Postal Service. This is another one of those, is there something we can do? You know, can we do combo poly on 5%? Can we, take promo incentives? What this has been is, and again, we got a little prop, it looks just like, because it is shared mail. This looks just like that combo poly, except for the fact that it's got a Doorfront Direct logo on it. And what this has done is the same thing, same process, except for as opposed to the Postal Service, this is different last mile carrier. And we're using newspaper parcel carriers, people that are coming to your door already to deliver in certain areas. The difference is it's taken to the doorstep or put in the parcel box out there. It's an investment that we were made, I think, 3-4 years ago we started this. To be honest with you, when it was 1 or 2% CPI type rates for the Postal Service, I'd much rather deal with the Postal Service. But now that we're starting to look at 20, 30% type increases in the last 18 months, we've actually started to push this program in terms of ramping up for it. And I say push it, just ramping up so that it's available out there. So the idea is right now, what we did is we built out the markets. It's 64 different markets. Now, obviously, the density isn't the whole state. It looks like that. What we're seeing now is anywhere from 13 to 20% of the people's file that are using it right now, the publishers and the magazines that are going out this way. So it's a smaller percentage, but the publisher that's using it, for instance, this year saved almost about $500,000 on that small percentage. And the other difference is we did increase their rate in March of this year. That's the first rate increase they've had in the 3.5 years they've been doing it. And it was 3% over 3.5 years. A little bit different than what we're seeing, obviously, in the rate increases on the postal side. Excuse me. Again, shared mail, the difference here is we can also put other products. It doesn't matter if it's a catalog or a magazine, direct mail piece, anything that we can get in there, obviously not flammable or illegal substances, but we can package anything the same way that we can on that line there. Now, here's what's new, and this is new as in we just started running on this machine about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's taken us a supply chain issue. When you order a machine custom built out of Italy, it takes you about 15 to 16 months to get that machine right now. It is, for some of you that took the tour, this is, I think John called it the shiny new monster or something like that out there. It is a huge machine. It's sitting in Sussex. Like I say, we just started it up about 3 or 4 weeks ago. This has the capability now. It's obviously, in the past, we had the facing slip. We'll still have the facing slip, but we can now have the pre-addressed pieces put in there, so you can have the renewal notices and so forth. We have inkjet capabilities on the piece. We have inkjet capabilities on the inserts. We didn't do that before. So now for the catalogers, you can do your messaging, you can do your key code, account numbers, those types of things. Obviously, we have additional base pockets and inserts. Pockets always become an issue when we're trying to do shared mail like this. And from a production standpoint, we have dual stackers on the back ends. We have package consolidation. So this machine it's kind of like pieces of all the other machines we had, but it's been a significant investment. And I see Don strolling, so that tells me he wants to say something.
Yes, I mean, Jeff and I talk about this all the time. And what we knew is, the future is going to be, you're going to use multiple different modes of delivery, right? That's just the direction it's going to go. So, putting this network together isn't the solution, it's part of the solution. But in order for that solution to grow, we had to buy that machine, right? This is the game changer for catalogers. This is the game changer to be able to include different parts of mail. So this is a $5 million piece of machine that we're going to fill. And it's going to be part of the solution to continue to offset postage and delivery and logistics costs. So, you know, when Joel was talking about the other day about us continuing to invest, you know, this is an example of it. And, you know, we don't have the answer, but we're going to work with all of you. And what you'll notice is the Sirius XM example, all these examples, right? This is us working with the clients to find creative solutions, and then we try to expand it out. And so this is what we're going to do. You know, this is our commitment to you. And anyone that wants to have further conversations on how we can utilize this or any of these programs, we're going to be happy to. But I just want to jump in. Because Doorfront Direct, the beta test was 2018, right? The CapEx sign-off for this was a year ago, and then, you know, we had all these supply chain things. So to move and to have the vision, it takes years. But then you see, once these programs start coming, they just become the standard. So I just wanted to put that little commercial out there.
Oh, that's great. And again, this is, in fact, Joel hit me with this a couple weeks ago. He's like, I think he finally believed what we were saying is, we saw this coming. Not necessarily the numbers in terms, but we knew this was something was going to happen with these rates that were not sustainable. So yeah, we started making this investment. And part of building a network like this out takes time because it's multiple different carriers, but it looks like one network, and it is one network for you folks. But it's a toolbox, and you're going to see that with all of these. It's how do you save 5% for combo? How do you save maybe 13% using these tools? And it's up to you. You can mix and match. But we're trying to come up with a lot of different options in the toolbox to help for different scenarios and different work out there.
So Jeff, I have a question. So how do we identify clients that are really a good potential fit for this asset? And how frequently does this run? Does this run weekly?
This is, well, it will be running weekly. Right now it runs weekly on the pub program, but obviously we can put catalogs in there now. The challenge on the catalogs is we couldn't inkjet on the piece, so we didn't have messaging and account number. We took care of, this machine is a monster. I mean, it has all those capabilities. Right now what we're doing is we're going through a lot of the clients that already are using offline, because if you're already using offline, you're familiar with, it's an offline program, right? You're familiar with spoilage, your schedules don't change, those types of things. And we're doing analysis. I think Karen and Kathy are in here. We've talked to at least 12, 15 clients already that and did the analysis, say, okay, here's what it would look like in your scenario. Here's the, obviously right now we have capacity, you know, to fill this thing up. The other thing that's really intriguing to me, and you know, you heard it from Joel, it's the marketing aspect. And it's really interesting talking to catalogers because it's like, what is the response rate going to be? And nobody knows, but it's different, right? So is this going to help response rate because it's coming in a different medium and not with all, and it's coming more as part of the parcels? We don't know, but that's part of what we want to be out there testing, and we want. So we're very open right now to getting people that want to try the program out. And again, you can try it. I know they don't like testing. I love testing. Try it. See what the response rate is, and we can work with you on that. But it is a secondary process, so if you, and like I say, so what we did right now is we're looking at clients that were in the standard multi, just because of it being a simple change.
Jeff, I assume you can't put a renewal notice in there still? Is that true?
We have QDF pockets to do that. What we will be doing, though, is we've got to develop the software. The phases right now is we're doing the program the way it is now. That's what's running today. We're adding the inkjet. When I say adding, the machine has the inkjet capabilities. As you folks know, all our smart tools have to integrate. So that's the first thing that we're adding next so that we can add catalog. And then the next phase after that is the attached mail.
CDS would like you to sort more of their work.
Yeah. And this actually, I should not say this when you're here. This thing's actually got multiple QDFs, so I can use multiple different pre-addressed pieces so that we can have different streams coming in and still keep the ordering. But that gets it complicated because of CDS. I promise I don't do a sales pitch, but at some point it would make sense if we did some of this letter shop work so that it was controlled. But we do get it to work with CDS, so yeah. But no, that is physically on the machine, it's there. We just don't have all the integration to it yet.
Okay, great.
Jeff, the other thing that I think you mentioned slightly, but in our pricing structure for this program, it's a one piece, right? It's a constant price. So with USPS portion, you've got different rates depending on where your mail falls. With this, it's all based on the weight of the piece, so you can, from a budgeting standpoint, you have a little bit more predictability.
Absolutely. It's a fixed rate. If it's 34 cents for that, and when we say rate tiers, these are like 2 to 4 ounce rate tiers. So we tried to make it very simple. And that one price includes the poly, so you don't have additional poly. You pay freight like you pay freight now, but that includes the machine running, so there's not a share model or anything. It's a very simple budgetary type program. And again, that's what we hear from you, is how do we make it simple so that we can budget and plan for this?
So who are the people who are actually throwing it on the doorstep?
Right, it's a combination right now of parcel carriers and newspaper carriers that are out there. And as you can imagine, we're looking at pretty much anybody that is already going to the household. I mean, I think you heard the Postmaster General talk about it. I know I get the Amazon truck now hits us 3 times a day. I got a FedEx truck, I've got a USPS truck, and then you got the UPS truck, and then other carriers, right? What we're doing is trying to build a network out that says the cost efficiency is somebody that's already coming there. So whatever vendor that'll be in the future, it should be agnostic in the background, and that's how we're trying to build the program, so that it is that in the background. Because even newspaper carriers, I was really worried when we first met with newspaper carriers. Hopefully there's not too many newspaper people in here. But it's an eroding market, right? But then as I started to work with like ACI and some of these, they're actually outsourcing the delivery. It's not the newspaper company doing the delivery, it's a delivery company. And that's really who we're associated with and actually networking with. And open to any other that can basically handle that. Other questions on the Doorfront Direct piece? Again, nobody has to use any of these, but it's an option. And to Don's point, we're investing in this because we're investing in you. And this is something that I know people questioned my logic 4 or 5 years ago when we looked at this, but it's investing to see what's going to happen out there, and now it's happening. And had we started now, we would be 2 or 3 years before we'd get it, and by that time it could be too late. So another option out there for you when we're considering it. One more thing that we're going to hit. I did forewarn the other presenters we were going to run a little long. I knew that on this deck. When we start looking at optimizing the list, we really wanted to look at what's actually getting sent out. So there's a couple things. You've heard us talk about Listelligence before. That concept of how do you apply and add a record to get it to carrier out or to get it to high density, while still using either your in-house list or using a list that we can provide to pull those names in. So we have people doing that now, right? This is that concept of natural HD or carrier out where the original select, these names didn't make it because of your marketing score, but then as we're doing the pre-sort or the Listelligence prep, you're 3 records away or 10 records away from HD, we actually go back through and pull names back in to get you to a carrier router to get you. So it's add a name on steroids, for lack of a better word. We have people that are doing this today. In this example, we had somebody that added over 4 million copies, but to save $3 million in postage, in other words. Because if you think of it, those 2 or 3 extra pieces just saved you that 4.3, 4.8 cents if it's high density on 120 pieces. Now, you heard Sharon yesterday. I talked to her at lunch. They're not taking HD away. I asked her if they were just going to eliminate it. And I think it wasn't confidential, but she said, no, we're not going to take it away. We're just going to de-incentivize it. So in other words, we're going to take away the incentive from a cost standpoint. But if you do things like this, it's just natural, right? Even if it's a penny, we're going to take the penny. But what we're starting to build right now, and you'll see it coming out again in the next 4 to 6 months, if not earlier, is try to get people to look at deselecting on the list. This is something I know Mari and the Potpourri folks have been doing for years, but we have it now already with CAS certification NCRA. Dropping, we've tried to make it simple. There's 600 air codes. We translated it to A through F, right? So you know F records are really bad. They're undeliverable. Getting people to drop some of those non-deliverable, some of those questionable records. Some people do it automatically. Other people are still sending that, and we'll see anywhere 3, 4, 5% of the file have records that probably are questionable if they're going to get there in the first place. We've also recently run into people that you have to do move updates, so you use an NCOA. Unfortunately, the latest one was a retailer who sells paint. Well, when you did move update, and the only way to buy paint, obviously cost effectively, is to go to the store, and you had people that were now 300 to 500 miles from your closest store, probably didn't work, even though at one time they were your best customers. So these are like simple things of, it's as important what you select for the list, but also what you deselect. How do we get those couple percentage points of bad records? The part that we're adding now is in pre-sort and post-pre-sort processing, the ability to actually drop some of the records, like non-autos, the expensive records. Or you just saw on the previous slide when Chad was talking, the piece rate for, is 21.8. It jumps to 38 by the time I get to 5-digit, and I'm at a 50-cent piece by the time I get to a 3-digit. If that's a comp copy if you're a publisher, or if that's a prospect if you're a cataloger, do you really want to send it out? Because most of the marketing score is built off your average piece cost. Do you want to send it out, or do you start dropping those records? And that's being built now, and then the subsequent is linking that into Listelligence. If you would like, then we'll switch it back. So we may drop 18,000 records, but we can backfill with records that are at a carrier out or HD level. So what you're going to see is a lot more of the how do you optimize, and we have the score built in there. So again, you can, if it's your best customer and you don't care if they're going at a $1 piece, that's fine, but we can start deselecting. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but we're seeing anywhere from 3 to 7% on the CAS and the NCOA still. And then when we start looking on the bottom, again, we're picking up another 3, 4, 5% that are like non-autos in low sortation records. You start thinking this again. Now we're talking about 10% of your file that are those really expensive records. Do you want to send them? And the reason we brought this up is, one, we've been asked to do this from a lot of the clients, but the other is, it goes to that comfort factor, right? When we were at 1 or 2%, it's like, whatever, just send them. It's only a couple percent. This goes back to what we talked, right? How do we take little pieces away? How do you take 3, 4, 5% of the file that's either really expensive, not getting delivered, and either don't send them at all or replace them with records that are going to be at a carrier out level or at a higher level? So, Kara, Kathy will be around. We can talk more about this, but again, when I say it's being built, it's literally the software is being built now. So this is not a 2 or 3 years out thing. This is taking advantage of what we've already built, and at the request of customers, how do we, deselect things too that are very costly? Because those gaps, Chad hit it before, and the same thing's on the marketing mail. The gap between carrier route and those 3 digits, they're telling us a significant message where sometimes you can send 3 pieces at carrier route to the 1 piece at 3-digit. If you're prospecting, I know you guys are doing a lot with comp and agency copies, dropping it. Why send those expensive pieces out on a prospect type look? So that's the direction that we're going with it. Questions on any of that? I promise that's our last slide, so we'll keep moving. But does this stuff make sense? So really, again, to kind of summarize, challenge us. These folks have challenged us, but we're taking that. Yes, you're going to hear the word standardized so that you can tell everything's about cooperative mailing and how to make things efficient. But then it's, yesterday we were all a little uncomfortable with some of those numbers, right? But, back to the necessity is the, best way to look and innovate. This is the time where we're going to be uncomfortable, but if we work together, I'm totally confident. Like I say, I've got teams that are used to my craziness and pushing and challenging them, and we do like it. It's really the part of the job I like the best. These sessions, not sitting up here, but talking to clients, coming up with crazy ideas that theoretically don't work, but then we make work. That's the best part of this job, because it's how do you actually take advantage and make things happen out here? And like I say, I'm totally confident we can do that if we're working together, if we're partnering together on these things. So if there's no other questions, we've got one more presentation before we're going to put you on a break. I hope Pat's here. Pat's here. It's a legislative one. So this is the time, Charlie, you can fall asleep. No. Postal reform made it through, so we're actually... So we're actually in pretty good shape. But again, we still want to keep, everything isn't fixed, but we got a huge, huge win out there. So with that, I'd like to thank my panelists. I know it's not easy to come up here. And we will turn it over to you, Pat.